Welcome to another Yarnspirations tutorial. My name is Brittany and I teach over at Bhooked Crochet. Today I'm thrilled to teach you how to crochet one of my newest designs in collaboration with Yarnspirations, the comfy Crochet Super Scarf. Before we get started, download your free pattern from yarnspirations.com, grab your hooks and alpaca blend yarn, and let's dive into the tutorial. We're going to begin our scarves with color A, and we'll make a slip knot first. Place that loop on your hook. That doesn't count as our first chain. We're going to wrap the yarn and pull through. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. We need to have a total of 62 chains to start off our scarf. Once you have your 62 foundation chains, we're going to jump into row number 1, and this pattern has a pretty simple repeat, but you do have to pay attention to it as you're going along. So we're going to be working with treble crochet stitches, so keep that in mind. We're going to have to wrap the yarn around the hook twice, and to start off we need to find the 5th chain from the hook. So we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is my 5th chain. I'm just going to flip it over so that I can work in the back bump. You can work in the side loops if you're more comfortable. So this chaining of 4 that we're skipping here is going to count as our first treble crochet for this row. We'll work the next one by wrapping the yarn twice. Insert your hook into that 5th chain from the hook. Pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 twice. And then yarn over and pull through 2 again, so technically we're doing that 3 times, and that's going to finish off the treble crochet. So to start off, we need to work in groups of 5. We're going to be doing that quite a bit. So I have 2 stitches here. I'm going to work a treble crochet 3 more times, so once into each of the next 3 chains, and that's going to give me my first group of 5. And then the next thing that we want to do is work our point up at the top. So if you can envision, this is where we're working up the peak, then we're going to go down the peak and then up and down, and we're going to continue that over and over. Well, whenever we get to the top or the point, we need to make 3 treble crochets in the same stitch. So I'm just finding my next chain. I'm going to work 3 treble crochets there. And then it'll start to look like this. You can sort of see a little bit of a curve, and that's perfect. That's what we want. So we're going to work on our next group of 5 treble crochets. So we're going to make 1 treble crochet into each of the next 5 chains. This is going to be working down. So after we've done that, we can really start to see the peak and the pattern start to form. Well, the last thing we need to do is create the point down at the bottom so that we can start back up on the next peak. And in order to do that, all we're going to do is skip 2 chains. It's that easy. I'm going to skip 1 and 2, and then I'm going to treble crochet in the 3rd. And in doing this, I'm also going to be very mindful of my tension because this is going to pull everything together. So I'm just going to hold it a little bit closer than I normally would, making sure that I'm not letting this loop get too large or too loose. And I'm also making sure that I'm working these yarn overs as tight as I can. And when you do that and you lay it out, then there's not a big gap there, but there's a big gap down here, and that's what pulls it together to make the shape. So we've already started in on our repeat. We have to work 5 treble crochets up, just like we did here. This was a little bit different at the beginning since we have that chain 4. We'll work the 5 treble crochets up, we'll work the point at the top, and the 5 down. So let's look at that repeat one more time. I'm going to work my 5 treble crochets. I've already got the 1 and the second one. And then when I have my 5 in a row, I'm going to work the point at the top by making 3 treble crochets in the next chain. And then I'll just work 5 treble crochets coming down the peak. Then we're going to skip the next 2 chains and start our repeat over. So what I would like for you to do at this point is finish crocheting this first row, repeating this sequence of stitches that we've just covered here, and then we'll talk about how to build upon this pattern with the next row. When you get to the end of your row, you should have 4 completed little peaks and valleys. And when you have 5 chains remaining, we're just going to finish this last little peak that we have. So I've worked 5 up, 3 for the point, and then I'm going to work 1 treble crochet into each of the last 5 stitches. And that's going to complete this little peak and our row. Row 2 has a very similar repeat to row 1 that we've just completed here. There's just a couple of minor differences. We're going to start off the row with chain 3. So make 3 chains and turn your work. And we're going to find the next stitch. So we're not going to work right here. This is the first where our chain 3 is coming from. We're going to find the next chain. We'll wrap the yarn twice and make a treble crochet. So the difference here is that this is counting as a treble crochet 2 together. So keep that in mind. This is sort of a stitch all on its own. And then what we're going to do is make 1 treble crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. Now I'm working my treble crochets under both loops of the stitch. So looking at it from this angle, I'm going into both. And when we work these 4 treble crochets, that's going to get us to the middle stitch of our group of 3. We're going to focus in on that stitch. So you have your treble crochet 2 together. That's technically acting as 1 stitch. We have 4 treble crochets, and then you just want to double check find your group of 3, which is right here. Find the stitch in the middle. That's where we're going to work 3 treble crochets. So we're just adding another point here. Now the next thing you need to do is work 1 treble crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. It's going to get us down the other side into that little valley. When you do that, you're left with 1 stitch here on the end and then 1 stitch right there to start off the next repeat. Well, just like we did in the foundation chain here, we're going to skip these 2 stitches. That's going to continue the shape, so to sort of pull it up in that direction. And we're going to go right into our next repeat. So 1 treble crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. Your 3 treble crochets there. And then we're just going to repeat that. Make 1 treble crochet into each of the next 5. You'll skip 2 and work that over the next peak. So you'll finish that up for the remainder of this row, and then we'll talk about what to do next. When you get to the end of your row, your last 2 stitches are going to be a treble crochet 2 together. So looking at it here, I have my group of 3. I've made 4 treble crochets, and then I'm going to group the last together. So since we counted that chain 4 as a stitch, we're going to have to work into that chain in order to complete our treble crochet 2 together just for this row. So I'm going to locate that next stitch, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop once, and pull through 2 loops twice. Then we're going to leave those 2 loops on our hook and find the 4th chain. I'm going to yarn over twice, insert my hook into that chain, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2, and pull through 2, and then we'll have 3 loops on our hook. Then just yarn over and pull through all 3. Now we've turned those 2 stitches into 1, and we have our proper count to finish off this row. Now for the other rows, you're not going to have that chain 4 to work into because that was the beginning, our foundation. So you're going to have 2 stitches or 2 V's to work your treble crochet 2 together into. Now to continue on, we're going to work 8 rows total from color A. So we have 2 rows here. Go ahead and work up 6 more rows in the same repeat that we've covered here. And then I'm going to demonstrate how to change colors because we're going to do that a few times throughout the scarf. Once we've worked up 6 more rows of our pattern, it now looks like this. And we've almost used up 1 full skein to work this pattern. We have just a little bit left. And this is the point where you should have your work situated. So there's one little tip that I like to teach when I'm changing colors, and when you finish a stitch, this is what it looks like. You have just the 1 loop on your hook. Well, here we ended with a treble crochet 2 together. And in order for us to have a really clean color transition, it helps if we change our color in the middle of the stitch. So you have your work like this at this point. Well, go ahead and just release your hook and very gently pull that first loop through. That's going to leave those 3 loops exposed, and then just pick them back up on your hook. Now go ahead and grab color B, leave yourself a tail that's about 6 inches or so, and place that new loop on your hook and pull it through those 3 loops. Now you can go ahead and trim off color A, and if you feel better, you can always just make a small or just a single knot with the 2 ends, and that's just going to keep some tension on this new loop. From here, our pattern is completely the same, our stitch pattern. We're going to start off the next row with a chain 3 and then turn your work, and you'll go into your treble crochet 2 together here on the edge and go ahead and work up this pattern repeat. So we're not changing anything as far as the stitch goes. I just wanted to demonstrate the color change. We're going to work 8 rows in color B, and then we're going to continue transitioning to color C and color D, and then back to color A. We're going to repeat the color sequence a total of 3 times. So we're going to go A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, and A, B, C, D. Once we get to that point, then we can go ahead and fasten off. We'll jump back to the tutorial at that point because I want to demonstrate how to finish your scarf, so how to bind off and how to weave in your ends. And then we're also going to add a couple of last minute finishing touches. So go ahead and work up the length of your scarf, and we'll pick up at the end to work the finishing touches. Once you've completed the last color repeat, then we can go ahead and fasten off. So just leave yourself a tail long enough to weave in, and then you'll just pull the tail through the loop on your hook. And the next thing we need to do is start weaving in some of these ends. Now this is a reversible pattern, which means it looks the same on one side compared to the other. So just choose which side you want to be the right side and which side you want to be the wrong side, and be consistent with how you weave them in. Just go ahead and pick any 2 ends to weave in. I'm going to grab this color here on the edge and thread that on your darning needle. And I'll state the obvious here, just make sure you're weaving in the tail on the side with the same color. So when you tie these off, sometimes they do have a tendency to want to flop on you. So it'll look like the red side here is up close to this color section and the tan is over here. So you just want to make sure you're sorting that out. And what I like to do is weave in my ends along a row of stitches. So I'm not really going to go on this row here because it is touching that red. So I'm just going to work the tail up to the next row, and I'm just weaving it in and out of that chain to disguise it. And then I'll just work the tail under the row of stitches and go over 3 or 4 stitches depending on how long your tail is. And then once you do that, you'll just weave it back in the other direction. And then you can trim it off. So repeat that for all of your ends. The last thing we'll talk about next is how to make the tassels. We're going to use color B for the tassels, so you'll go ahead and grab a skein of that. We're going to use quite a bit of it, and we're going to need either a tassel maker, which you can get at your store, or if you don't have a tassel maker, you just need something flat. So here I'm actually just using a crochet hook holder. It measures about 3.5 inches long, which is right about where I want to be with the tassels. If you don't have something flat like this, I've used Post-it notes before. That works perfectly fine. Or you can just cut a piece of cardboard. You just have to have some kind of framework so that way your tassels will all be the same size. So what we want to do is take our tail end, our piece of yarn, and just hold it right along the edge. So this is going to be the bottom of our tassel. This is going to be the top of our tassel. And all we need to do is wrap it around. Now it's always a good idea to count how many wraps you're doing. That way all of your tassels will be consistent. Once you have a nice full tassel, then you can go ahead and trim the working yarn down at the bottom. Remember, this is the bottom of the tassel, this is the top. Lay that there, and then we're going to take our yarn and cut a piece that's about 12 inches long. You can just eyeball it. It's not really a big deal. And we're going to slide this new strand of yarn underneath the entire group and then just sort of shift it up to the top, find the middle, and tie it off. This is going to be the piece of yarn that we use to attach it to the scarf. Now we're going to make another cut of yarn, this time about 6 inches or 8 inches will do. And then we just need to slide the tassel off of our holder, or if you're using the tassel maker. And we want to keep it as straight as possible. Now wrap your new strand around the tassel. And I'm just going about a 1/2 inch or so below this tie on the top. And then you'll tie a knot. You want to make this good and tight. This is going to be part of what holds it together. Now the last thing we'll do is flip it over to the bottom, and then we can trim the tassel. And since we're not using a tassel maker, we may have to do a little trimming. I'm just going to use those tails as actually part of the tassel. So just trim it up, make sure it's nice and even. Now we have a total of 10 points to our scarf, and we need to have a tassel for each point. So we have 5 points on one side, 5 points on the other. So go ahead and make your 10 tassels, and then you'll need to know how to attach them to the scarf. So let's look at how to do that next. To attach them, you'll just find your middle stitch from that group of 3 of your point, because that is the exact center of that point. And just slide your hook through there. And grab one of the pieces of yarn from your tassel, pull that through, and I'm just going to tie a knot. There's nothing fancy here. I'm just tying it in place. And then the last thing I'll do is weave in these ends. Now, yes, this is a contrasting color, so I want to be pretty careful about how I'm doing it. Make sure I'm weaving it in really well. You'll also notice that I'm weaving both tails in at the same time. It just makes it go a little bit faster. So I'm working the tails down through the middle of this stitch, and that's so you can't see it on either side. And now again, I'm working this on the back side of the work. And I'm just going to weave it in along this row of stitches, just like we did before. Now you'll just do that for all of the remaining points and your scarf will be done. That wraps up our tutorial on the Comfy Crochet Super Scarf. If you've enjoyed this project and you like my teaching style, you may want to check out my other resources at Bhooked Crochet. I have hundreds of videos and free patterns just waiting for you to try, and you'll even find a crochet podcast to keep you company while you work. You can find all this at bhookedcrochet.com. Thank you so much for working with me today, and I hope to see you again.